started modding Naruto Storm 4 because like if I got 1,000 views, I was like, that video went viral to me. That just made me like skeptical of women after that. I was like, oh, they're Sakura. Everybody sees the shine and they don't see the grind. Hours, weeks, months, maybe even years of grueling work with no accolade, no congratulation, no tangible result. Us just keeping our head down, doing shit. And for some people like me, it just makes me stop giving a shit, you know? What it was Disney bought a lot of licenses. So they were just like, your whole channel's gotta go. Gotta go. Gotta go. Gotta go.
Hold on, time out. Rewind, time out. You just breezed over that. Hold on, happy belated. I didn't know that. Happy belated. So how old are you now?
29.
Hell yeah, bro. Let's
so I'm
go.
pushing them triple decade digits soon. So.
Hey, let's go. Hell yeah. That's fire. Okay, so start off new age.
So yeah, so I start off each year just feeling brand new type shit, like, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's so crazy because I don't really honestly pay attention too much. I don't really care too much about new year, new me resolution. I'm like, I get new day resolution. Like I ain't about to wait for I got my own schedule type shit. But I feel like the moment that I think also you know when you're celebrating your birthday and you have all these people around and just like congratulating you, it's like, oh damn, I'm really that nigga. Like I need to let them know. Like so yeah, so then I'm just like I noticed like within this past week I've definitely been going a lot like crazier about like I think the other thing too is that like sometimes like for a lot of I don't really hang out with a lot of people. I just hang out with my friends and I just stay in the house most of the time. So I don't always register how much other people care. It's not that I don't know. I just don't get it in front of me. So for me to have all these people be like, we want to do X, Y, or Z, we want to see this, that. And I'm like, all right, I mean, if y'all want me to run it up, I can. Like, so yeah. So I feel like I've just been in overdrive, just being like, all right, well, I got a lot of people who want a lot to see me do a lot of stuff. So alas, here we are, you know?
That's dope. So 29, like, okay, so because where you live at the moment?
I live in LA right now. Well, I live in Pomona.
You're in LA.
It's a little bit more east.
Are you from Cali or are you from somewhere else?
Born and raised. I was born in Long Beach.
I guess walk me through it. Like, how did Heavenly become Heavenly? Like, what was obviously when we grew up, it was that being a YouTuber wasn't even a thing. That didn't exist.
I know. So it's so crazy.
How did you get from like what was like the story of how you got to this point?
Well, I started doing it in college and it was just a hobby. You know, I watched a lot of YouTube when I was like just on my downtime. And so I was seeing a lot of creators and I was like, wow, this content is really funny. Like I remember because before YouTube, I feel like YouTube, it's because, I mean, it's not really like this now because everything's all censored and shit. But yeah. Back then it was so raw. This content was just, I was dying because I have like a very like dark sense of humor. Like for something to make me laugh, it's got to be kind of like out of pocket. Yeah. And so I was like, yo, these guys are funny. And I was like, oh, well, that made me want to do that. I was like, oh, well, I want to do stuff like that. So I was really just doing that just for my own entertainment, my own hobby or whatever. And what's so funny is that I probably made videos for like, even before college, I was making videos. Like I made my first account in 2012 and nobody ever watched. I never expected anybody to care. It was literally I was just throwing stuff out. Right. And then I started modding Naruto Storm 4. And the first video I put out, and at the time I was getting maybe like 50 views, 100 views. Like if I got 1,000 views, I was like, that video went viral to me. Right. And so I put out that video. It didn't have a lot of subscribers at the time, maybe like 1,500 subscribers or something. And that video got 100,000 views in like 2 days. And so when I saw that happen, I was like, well, if I could do that shit once, I could do that shit again. So I was like, let me reverse engineer why this happened, the science behind it. And so I just started spamming those videos and they just were all, cause like the other thing too is when one video goes viral, now all the people who found that video, they're looking for more of it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna give y'all more. And I would always just pivot from one thing to the other. So I'm like, okay, now then Dragon Ball Xenoverse, like the first Dragon Ball Xenoverse came out, and then I started modding that too, and then that started blowing up. And it was funny because like when I was in college, people started coming up to me wanting to take pictures, and I was like, what? I could not understand that. And at the time, now every time someone wants to take a picture, I'm like, oh heck yeah, let's do it. But at the time, I'm like, no, this is weird. I'm at school, like, because to me, to me, this was a separate world. You know what I mean? Like,
Correct.
it wasn't supposed to breach into the real world.
Right.
But, and so the reason why I started getting a lot more into it was because that shit was making me money. Like,
Right.
so, and so I was like, oh, okay, bet. And so I was like, all right, my ability to reverse engineer virality, I can monetize this. And yeah, so then I was just always just like, okay, I was running up the mods, and then I used to make content on all these different things. Like I was reviewing comics, I was reviewing TV shows, but people like the anime stuff the most. So that's when I started to lean a lot more into that stuff. And because I'm just a super nerd. I'm into anything. Like sometimes it actually bothers me. People are like, I'll post like on Instagram like a comic things like I bet you didn't read this. Like just because I only show y'all niggas anime stuff because that's what you guys watch. I'm into everything. Like since I was a kid,
Yeah.
I've read all the comics. That's why people are like, oh, do you you should do. It's like I've watched every anime. I've played all those video games. I like every video
Right.
game and anime that comes out now is just an offshoot of some shit I've already played or something I've already watched. So even if I
Right.
haven't already played or watched it, I can hop in and already know the controls, or I can watch something and already
Right.
know the plot. So yeah, so I was just like a super nerd my whole life. So I was like, I read all the comics, I've watched all the anime, I played all the games, because like I just lived by myself. While I lived with my parents, I didn't really like hang out with people. I just like being in the house. I was like a nerd. I just like learning. I just like absorbing information.
Are you an only child?
And no, I got three sisters. So
Three
but
sisters.
I was the only
Sheesh.
boy though. So yeah. So
Got it.
I
So it kind of felt.
yeah.
Did it kind of feel isolated because of that?
Well, and that was the thing too, is that that's what got me really like into all these different hobbies. It was like I needed to find stuff that appealed to me as a guy, because in the house it was just like, you know, all these girls and they want to do girl stuff. So
Right.
I didn't really have stuff to do guy stuff with. I did have a cousin that he didn't live very close, but every time he came over, he would always put me onto more stuff. So he put me onto, he was the first person to put me on anime. He put me on a Dragon Ball Z. He had the whole collection in like VHS.
fire.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, whoa, this is crazy.
Right.
And put me on a Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Bleach. And back then, when I was a kid, like when I was like 8, 9, 10, I wasn't allowed to watch Bleach because it was on Adult Swim and they cursed, and so my parents wouldn't let me. So when I was at my cousin's house, we got to watch Bleach. It's like, oh, he said bitch, like so. But yeah, like, but I mean, that's pretty much the story though. Is that, you know, it kind of just happened on accident, and then after I graduated from college and got my degree, I'm like, I don't need this shit now. I'm rich. I'm gonna just go home. I'm gonna just go home, keep doing this. You know what I mean? Like. So
That's hilarious. He's like, I'm rich. I don't need this.
I don't need I don't need this piece of paper no more. Like,
Hey, so question. So, all right. So, you said your cousin kind of put you onto the anime side of stuff, and
Yeah.
so that you said you're about 8 or 9 years old at that time, or
yeah, well, he put me on to Dragon Ball Z. I was like 5. And
Word, okay.
once he put me onto that, well, what really got me into anime, honestly, was Naruto. I got
Okay.
a black Naruto painting back here, but
Yeah.
because, well, it fit everything, because for one, it wasn't on like Adult Swim, so I was allowed to watch it.
right?
And also, like, from the first episode, I was immediately, it was like, this kid, he had no friends, and he would just pull pranks to get people's attention. And I was like, this nigga is literally me. I related to it on off rip. The first episode, I was like, I had never seen anything like this before. And like, he was like a kid, because most of the shows, they were like adults, and they were just already just doing all this stuff. So I was like, this is a kid, like, he got a backpack on, and like, and the thing too that I liked about Naruto is that he's kind of a bitch in the beginning. Like, he's not like mentality wise, but like, not like, I mean, he's a kid. So like, when they go on their first mission and he's getting scared, and it's like, that's some real shit. It's like, you know, so he actually had like a realistic personality I could relate to at that age. And I think when Naruto came out, at least when it aired on Cartoon Network or whatever, I think I was probably like 10 or something. So that's when I really got into it. And I remember when Naruto finished airing, well, then like after the Naruto vs Sasuke fight, they stopped airing it, and I was like, oh, is that just the end of the show? And somebody told me, oh, there's actually in Japan a sequel called Naruto Shippuden. I'm like, what? There's more? And he's older. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And at the time, there was a website. It was literally, if you went on Naruto.com, now it's probably some whatever shit, but you go on Naruto.com, and they had all of the Naruto Shippuden episodes they were in Japanese at the time, and that's what put me into Japanese stuff too, because at the time when I was watching the original Naruto, it was in English, and so that was my first time watching anime in Japanese. Well, I watched the Dragon Ball Z VHS in Japanese too, because they were like the originals. Well, no.
Yeah.
The Dragon Ball Z tapes were in English, but the Dragon Ball GT tapes were, and the Dragon Ball tapes were in Japanese.
Yeah.
But I don't even think some of them, I don't even think they had subtitles. So it was like, I didn't watch that much of it because I don't even know what they're saying. Well, I watched the Dragon Ball GT stuff just because it looked really cool, but I didn't really know what was going on. Yeah. So they had all the Naruto Shippuden episodes, and it was free. Like, it's not like how everything has a paywall behind it now. So I would sit there, and my parents would literally like kicking me off the computer because I would be on the computer for hours just binging Naruto Shippuden.
Wow.
So yeah. That's what really put me on.
And that's the Wild West days of the internet, where
I know.
And
the internet was better back then, honestly.
The internet was definitely better back then
because there was no regulation on stuff.
Facts. I mean, and it's so crazy because like before, I was telling people that because I'm 36, so when I talk to people about like the pre-YouTube days, it was like E-Bombs World was like the thing that people would go on to find like the funny videos and stuff like that.
What is that?
E-Bombs World was like, so it was like a website. It was like a variety website. It had like a ton of like funny videos people would upload. It had all these soundboards and stuff that people could use to prank call people. It was like this, it was a crazy website. So a lot of the early viral stuff on YouTube came from E-Bombs World. So like the You Kick My Dog audio and all that stuff, that was first on E-Bombs World. And like all these soundboards of like people doing all these prank calls were there. But at that time, it was, again, like people would put up clips and stuff of Dragon Ball GT when I was a kid. And this was like maybe 2000. This is like still really early days. So when you were going to school, did you have a lot of friends talking about anime, or was it just kind of like nobody really talked about it?
No, when I was in school, it wasn't cool to like anime. So I was low key with it. Like, and then even when I was in school, I didn't really even talk about much of it. Like, once again, when I was in school, all my friends were girls. I just hung out with like 20 girls, and they're just like, oh, haha, whatever. So I'm just kind of there. So, and that's also what really got me into all this stuff, is that was the only opportunity where I could actually express myself, because the stuff that people were into at school, this was even why like I was in a lot of sports in school, because all the boys were just wanted to be in sports. So I was into all these sports just to hang out with all the boys. And so, I mean, I became very athletic as a result, but I was never really that into sports. It was really just a social thing for me. And so, yeah, so like, it wasn't until I started making content where like I really started to actually like, and once again, it was meant to be private originally, but then as it became more mainstream, I'm like, okay, I guess it's cool now. Well, and then when I was in college, especially once people started coming up and recognizing me, I'm like, oh, so niggas think this shit is cool. So then I would just start wearing like, you know, anime graphic tees to school. And then like people, and not even just guys, like even girls, they go, I like your Naruto shirt. So like that was the thing that I learned. I was like, oh, so y'all all like this shit. Y'all just being low key with it. So, but so yeah, so like nowadays I'm just like, all right, well, since now all y'all like it. But see, you know what's crazy now? Now everybody likes it to the point to where it's just being shoved down my throat so much and oversaturated that like now I kind of don't give a shit. It's not even that. It's not that I don't care. It's not that I don't care at all. It's just that like I'm just tired like, because like once again, I'm not just into anime. I'm into comics and I'm into movies. I'm into all types of different things. So it got to the point where I'm like, all right, like I will facilitate the conversation, but at the end of the day, I don't really have anything to say that I haven't said already. So like when I talk to people, like this conversation that we're having right now, like I mean, well, I haven't had this specific type of conversation, but when I talk to people about anime, I'm really just doing it for them. Like I have already had all these conversations in my head, so
But yeah, and I'm kind of with you on that, and it's funny because, you know, I do anime reactions, so when people come and I'll end up walking through the show before things actually happen, and they're like, "Oh man, you're so good at predicting stuff." It's like, no, I mean, you've seen enough shown, and you kind of understand the recipe. You understand where stories go.
You kind of see what's happening. You see what's coming before it comes.
Correct, and I think sometimes you have a lot of people that are coming to these shows, or like with Naruto. I saw Naruto super late. I saw Naruto in 2018. So I
Well,
hadn't watched it at all. So when, you know, they first showcased the whole um Obito sequence for the first time of like how
mm,
Kakashi got the eye,
yeah.
and then the next scene was Toby. I was like, oh, Obito's Toby. That was what I connected
Oh
immediately.
no, same.
But
Even for me, that just seems super obvious when I first saw that. I'm like, are we gonna pretend? Like I
yo,
remember, I remember when I got spoiled on it, and I wasn't really mad because once again, when I was in school, people didn't know that I was in anime, and
right.
I was on the football team at the time, and I was in the locker room, and some guy he read the manga, so he was like,
Oh
Toby
wow.
is Obito. And then, like in my head, I'm like, "Nigga," but I couldn't be mad at it because he wouldn't know. Like, but yeah, like the moment I saw that, but like when he said it, I was just like, it was just like, oh no shit, you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
who else could it possibly be? If a character in anime is wearing a mask, it's gonna be somebody you already know. Otherwise, when it's revealed, you're not gonna care. So I'm like,
Yeah, you're
okay,
not gonna
there's
care.
only one character that like he got the same shotting on in the same eye where he got crushed. Like
Yeah.
this is common sense. Like
Yeah. It
that's why
was
I was
so
even surprised
interesting
when
because,
Kakashi was like, "Who are you?" Like, nigga, who do
bro,
you think he is? There aren't a lot of Uchiha. Like,
that was the thing that a lot of people in the stream like, oh, you got spoiled or you read it. I was like, no, so for those that don't know, I'm a part of a film company, Ismahawk. So we do a lot of live action films and stuff like that for versus battles and stuff, and then we shoot
mhm,
a lot of action sequences for shows. So for us, we're just for me again in the story aspect of things, it was just the logical outcome. So for me, again, it comes back to like, if you've seen enough of something, it's really easy to kind of piece things
yeah,
together. And I agree with you in the sense of I've seen enough to be like, okay, I know what this is. I'm going to enjoy it still. However, when
mhm,
people are coming in like this is the third anime that they've seen, and they're like, "Oh, you don't know what's gonna happen," or "You gotta, you know, you're not paying attention properly," or it's like, "Look, man,
uh,
like I've done this a little bit, but
I understand. I
so
understand. Chekhov's gun. You know what that term is?
no."
So
Oh,
basically,
are you
it's
talking about when you see it when the gun is shown, you have to use the gun?
yeah. So it's like a storytelling term where like everything serves some purpose. Everything has some narrative
Mm,
purpose. So like that's another way that I can predict something. Was like, well, certain things have to happen. Like it's like, oh, this
mm,
character has to die because it's been set up that way. And if I've seen
right.
that setup enough times, then and because like especially like a lot of the anime that we get these days is being written by people who grew up on the stuff that I watched. So that's where
Correct.
they take their inspiration from. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
like I have all the templates that they're using in my head already. So
Correct. Yeah, and it's one
yeah.
of those things too where I think in fandoms, and I think this kind of aligns to like just I think life in general, is people will say, "Oh, this is just a remake of Naruto or a remake of Bleach or da da da," and people are like, "Oh, it's like a better version." It's like, well, hopefully it would be better because it's
Hopefully they
based off
innovate
of.
a little bit.
Hopefully they've improved animation and writing, and
Yeah.
hopefully that's the case. Like,
Hmm.
so when people are like, "Oh, well, you know, Naruto's better than Dragon Ball," it's like, well, the guy that wrote Naruto took heavy influence from Dragon Ball and just said,
Right.
"Okay, let me just make better versions of these." Like, it's a really simple concept. It's almost like when people talk about sports, like, "Oh, well, the older athletes are more." It's like, well, the newer athletes are more skilled because they grew up on watching these other
Right.
athletes, and like,
They imprinted all of the they watched all the
correct.
film. So yeah. Like
It's so
the person who did that
interesting.
the first time, they had to invent that shit. Now you can just see someone do it
Correct.
and be like, oh, you know,
It's
yeah.
a normal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a normal
So,
thing.
but I agree with you. Like when I was a kid, same. Like there was nobody talking about anime, and it wasn't until I graduated and started hearing stuff in music, and I was like, did he
Mm.
just reference?
Oh yeah.
Did he just reference
That
Dragon
that
Ball?
that used to be crazy when I would hear anime references. Yeah, Dragon Ball
Yeah.
references in a song. Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Or like I'll watch like a clip of The Simpsons and somebody's going Super Saiyan. You're like, hold on, time out. What are we doing?
Literally.
Like,
What are
so,
we
but then
doing?
it started, so then it was like, yo, so then it was one of those things where I started asking people that I went to school with. Like, oh, yeah, man, Dragon Ball was crazy. I'm like, hold on. So all y'all was watching it
So now all
and
y'all suddenly watching it.
I was like, so
Yeah,
nobody
on
was
the
saying
low,
nothing? Like,
right.
bro, it was so weird how many people was into it. Because that was the only thing, to your point, at that time when I was in high school, that was the only thing that was out that guys liked, but nobody was talking about. But
Right.
you were saying that it wasn't a kid. Goku was an adult at that time because everybody jumped on Dragon Ball Z first because that's what we saw.
Same.
nobody really knew Dragon Ball was a thing until after Dragon Ball Z had ended, or they would reference things from Dragon Ball. So
Yeah.
I wish I kind of saw Naruto as a kid. I think I would have, because I love Naruto. It's in my top 5, but I think I would appreciate Naruto more growing up as a teenager than as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like since I grew up on Naruto, it kind of like imprinted on me. It kind of like sculpted me. And like it's kind of funny because one of the things I talk about to a lot of people is to be mindful of the things that they watch or read, because it programs them, and then you start to actually mirror that stuff, and then your reality becomes the things that you consume. And so on one hand, it was like, oh, Naruto's really cool, but it's like, oh, after seeing, like, they gave me shit. I was like, after watching Naruto and see him pine so much after Sakura and him just treat him like shit, that has made me like skeptical of women after that. I was like, oh, they're Sakura. Someone said, mad, it said Sakura red pilled me at an early age, and people are like, what? Oh, I'm like, I mean, so like that's why, like, for me, I was watching Naruto and I was like, okay, well, Naruto gets no hose, so I got to be Sasuke, but I feel like it's so funny. I feel like it's like a combination. I feel like I'm like half Naruto, half Sasuke. You know what I'm saying? It's like two sides of the same coin. But that's kind of how the show shapes it too. It's like they're both kind of the same, and it's like, oh, our roles could have been reversed type shit. So I feel like that's kind of also what inspired me in my content. Like, okay, like, if nobody's giving me any attention, I'm gonna just troll them. So, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, but
so you end up going to college, and what did you end up going to college for? Like, what'd you major in?
I majored in linguistics, so I have like a English degree basically.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, that's why I have such a robust vocabulary. Like,
well, so here's the thing, because I think a lot of times people look at content creators a particular way, right? They assume that, hey, this is who they are. It's like, no, this is what I do, or what I'm interested in, or a part of what you see me interested in. So to see that you have a whole other, pathway that you could have went down.
I was supposed to be an English teacher. That's why I'm like, when people try to talk to me, I was like, I don't think y'all understand how much I read. I'm smarter than all you niggas. Like, most people have never read a single book. It's like, I literally just do that. Like, even to this day, I just read 24/7. So I'm just like, I've consumed so much information that I see outside the matrix. Every person that I meet is just playing out some archetype. They're just playing out some version of a character that I read. So to me, it's just like the whole thing's a game because I see the storyline,
Right.
Like, yeah. So sorry, what were you gonna say?
No. So in college, like, was it because you were obviously doing your YouTube channel while you were in college?
Yeah.
And did you ever say, like, during the process, like, I don't think I'm gonna finish this, or I'm just gonna finish it and see where what was the decision to continue?
I mean, well, even before I went into college, when I was in high school, I kind of figured out I could bullshit it and get a degree anyway, or get a diploma anyway, because I just did the math, and I was like, by the time I could have graduated if I was a sophomore, because I took a lot of AP classes, and so they're weighted differently. So it doesn't really matter what your grades are or your GPA, you just need enough credits to graduate.
Correct.
So by the time I was a junior, I was like, oh, I don't even need to be here no more. So I would just show up, flirt with the girls, and ditch. And then my parents would give me so much shit for it. But then when I graduated, I had medals and sashes, and they're like, even my mom, she was like, did you get all this stuff? I was like, because I got my shit right early. Like, I don't even need to do any of this. So same with college, it was like, okay, and also, when it comes to English, like, since the reason why I majored in English was because since I already read so much, I didn't actually really have to, like, study or anything. I could just bullshit it. It's like, oh, write an essay on this thing. And I'm like, I can kind of just look at it and be like, I could honestly, like, the way that like, people say, now they call it yapping. The way that I rant is that, like, I could read one chapter and write 10 pages off of that. So that's easy. It's like, oh, I'm a writer at the end of the day. Like, I've been writing books since I was 5. So I'm like, okay, like, I'm going to go to school and just write shit. So I wouldn't, once again, when I was in college, I wouldn't even go to class. I would just write the shit, turn that in. And so to me, college was just like, and I didn't even pay for it. My parents just wanted me to go to college. They wanted someone in the family to graduate. So I'm like, all right, I'm not paying for this. I'm gonna just show up. They had a little food court. I show up, watch anime, and eat. You know what I'm saying? Just so, like, it looked like I was going to my parents, you know what I mean? And if a class was interesting enough, or if like the professor was chill, I'd go there just to like, like I actually enjoyed a lot of my classes. I actually learned a lot from a lot of classes that I took. Like one class that I took, it was called Black English. And what I learned is that when we speak in our slang, there's actually like vernacular to it. Like it's got consistent vocabulary. It's not broken English. It's just a different dialect. And that was interesting to me because they got us thinking that black people are dumb and that we can't speak properly, when in actuality, it's really just that we spoke a different language. So when we learned English, we took some of the grammatical rules from the language that we derived from and transferred it into English. And then there were also a lot of classes that I took where we debated serious things like, do you believe in color blindness? And it was so interesting because there were people of all cultures in the class. And some people, they didn't want color blindness because they want their culture to be taken into account when you interact with them. And there was other people who said, well, they think there should be color blindness because we shouldn't judge people based on their color. And I remember thinking like, wow, both arguments made sense. And so that's why for me, I always play devil's advocate when I debate with people, because I understand that there's two sides to every argument. So I had a lot of debates in college too. And that's why it's so funny. Like people just can't argue with me because they've never argued with adults on a collegiate level before. So they've never actually thought about what they're arguing to a certain extent. And that's also why for me, I don't even like even having really debates online because they're very juvenile. You know what I'm saying? So, but if someone actually wanted to, like, and because I'm always just like, oh, because there also were times where I went on somebody's podcast or stream, whatever, to debate something, and they actually had their notes. They had like, they knew what they were talking about. And I was like, okay, you're actually right. And then on the internet, if you admit you're wrong, they shit on you. So I'm like, okay, we can't even have a healthy conversation. So it's
what's so interesting about that though, and I think a lot of times, to your point, is life's about perspectives. And I think people don't really grasp the concept of sometimes your perspective is off. Sometimes your perspective, you don't have enough information. It's like, and sometimes your information is wrong. Sometimes you got past information from a parent and they heard from another person, they got it from their parent, but they've been passing wrong information this whole time. It's not their fault. That's just the information
it's not
that
their
they
fault. I be telling people this. This might be the most graceful way to word this, but I'm like, it's not your fault that you're stupid. You were just misinformed. Because for a lot of people, their foundation of their ego is based on what they know. And so if they find out that the things that they know aren't true, instead of trying to find the truth, they'd rather gravitate to the thing that maintains their ego. And it's just like, well, if you have such an ego, how about like for me, it's like, how about you assign your ego to the truth? When you learn the truth, then that will reinforce that. Like for me, I was like, it's fine to be so, okay. But once again, I don't even like doing that to people sometimes because then it's like they don't respect you because you humble yourself to information. I don't know what that's all about. But
yeah, it's one of those things where I think sometimes, and I think the parasocial relationships online with creators, you have people that really rock with you heavy. So they want to just see you win as much as possible. And I think sometimes when they see a scenario where you may seem like to them that, oh, you didn't win here, then it almost becomes like this. They almost resent you. It's almost like you should have won that. Or why did you accept this? And it's so interesting because it's like, sometimes I think society, especially in school, it's this idea of being wrong is bad. It's like, that's how you learn though in real life.
That's why I think the grading system is dumb, because
it's so stupid.
The way that it's set up is like, if you didn't do a perfect score, they give you this grade that like punishes you for you, like, because that was the thing too that tripped me up. That's what made me really kind of like in high school to be like, this is kind of bullshit, is that I was literally like, is something wrong with me? I'm trying my best. Like people will give me shit. Oh, what you got to see? I was like, I like, you don't seem to understand. I literally tried my best. I literally sat there and studied that shit and then still didn't get a higher grade. And the fact that you can try your best at something and then it's like, there's just some things we're just not built for. Everybody is smarter in different things. Because there's some classes I wouldn't even try and I would get straight A's in. There's some classes where no matter how hard I tried. Math. Yeah, like, when they started adding letters and shit to math, I don't know what the fuck that was all about. Like, I was really good at math until pre-calculus, and then that was when I was just like, I was starting to question my intelligence because I was always thinking I'm the smartest kid that I know. And there were people getting better grades than me in pre-calculus. And I'm like, what? Like, I finally hit my wall with math. And I never experienced something like that before. But yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's like, if you get a bad grade, it's like, you got people thinking they're stupid. But what's funny is a lot of the people who get the worst grades in school end up being the most successful as adults. Because they finally found the thing that they're good at. And they ignored all this shit that they weren't good at because they didn't get congratulated for it in school. Like,
well, it's so interesting because like in school, that person was usually the person that was trying to find somebody to do their homework for them, right? Like, and I had friends like that where they're like, hey, can I just copy off of your math homework or whatever? Because they just weren't into math. Like they just couldn't do it. It wasn't something that but they were in the class.
It was boring.
So it was one of but in real life, that's you're looking at it from a business perspective now. You're leveraging someone else's skill set, right? You're like, all right, well, I don't know how to do this. I need to find somebody to do this. Okay, they know how to do this. That's why those people that are C students are the ones running businesses, is because they understand how to delegate.
I would cheat. Well, you know what's so funny? I would, instead of studying for a test, I would create the most elaborate way to get away with cheating on it. Like we would be like, what, like some Morse code shit, like, oh, cough for C twice or some shit like that, right?
Not cough for C.
Yeah. So we'd have the smart kid who knew everything, and then like we would just, and like the teacher would be like, why is everybody coughing? And then so we would do shit like oh, scratch your head. We'd have all these like symbols and stuff like that. So one of the references I make on stream a lot is like in the tuning exams in Naruto, right? The test is super hard,
that, bro.
And they encourage cheating. They just don't want you to get caught. They just don't want you to get caught. So I'm like, okay, like cheating is only wrong if they know that I'm doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So, but the thing is that I'm all about results. So I'm like, if I finessed all this shit and it worked, the results are the same. You know what I mean? Like whether I cheated or studied, y'all think I'm smart anyways. So
in the real world, what you just did is masterminding and networking. That's literally in finessing. The real world.
You could finesse the whole world. The whole world is a test that you got to finesse. That's literally That's literally what it is.
That's hilarious. You graduate. You're graduated. You're like, hey, I'm just gonna do my YouTube thing full time. Like, what was that feeling like, knowing that you completed college but didn't need college? Like, you didn't need the degree. Like, what did that feel like?
I mean, I never thought I needed it in the first place. Like I said, I just went because my parents said there. I've never felt like I needed any of this shit that this world had to give me. Like, I'm just always like, I'm gonna take care of myself. And like, so to me, I'm like, okay, if I get this paper and then I do this thing and it gets me money and so I can pay my bills so people get off my back, then I'll do it. But it was all the same to me, honestly. So for me, I just figured, and one of the things that I learned at an early age, like once again, even with high school, is that like nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about because I'm always doing my own thing and people give me shit for it, but then I get the best result and then I'm congratulated for it. Like once again, when I was in high school and not doing anything, everyone's saying I'm going to drop out. And then I end up graduating at the top of my class anyways. So it was the same thing. It was like, oh, this was when I ended up making more money off of YouTube than college. To me, it was just the same thing as high school. It was like, okay, like I'm going to ignore this and like do what I think is a better investment of my time. So, and like even to this day, like everyone's always, that's why I don't really like fuck with people because they don't know what they're talking about. Everybody's trying to, tell you to do one thing or the other. It's just like, there's a line that Kanye said on Piers Morgan interview. He's like, who's richer than you? Maybe you should listen to what I have to say, type shit. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've always just kind of had like this, what's the word for it? Like, people call me a narcissist sometimes, but I just feel like for me, I've always just felt like I just know more than everybody, but it wasn't even like I believed it by default. I would test it. You know what I'm saying? And like I would put it to the test. I would perform the scientific method. And I'm like, okay, if every time I test my intellect against another person, I end up agreeing more with my information, I'm going to trust my information more until proven otherwise. But the thing is, if somebody's smarter than me, I shut the fuck up and listen because I want to learn more. So yeah, so for me, I've always just been like, I'm just above this shit. Like I just don't even participate. Like it's all just like a Monopoly game that everybody's playing, So, like even like I don't even like for even capitalism, like there's so many things because like that's the other thing too. When you start getting popping, you're clouded, suddenly everything's free. Suddenly, just because of who I am, people just let me into shit, and other people will pay hundreds of dollars to do this shit. Like I go to an anime convention, someone pay $100 for, I just hop the fence, so I just step over it, because I'm tall as shit, So I'm just like, why would I participate in this stuff? Why would I sit there and get a job and then work really hard and then make all this money and then spend on this thing when I could just show up and walk in? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
so
and
yeah.
that's an interesting outlook, because I in the entertainment space, like I was in music production, and then I went into dancing professionally. So I was like doing stuff with the Jabberwockies for like 3 or 4 years.
You're a Renaissance man.
So Renaissance man. So so being in entertainment space, you see that all the time. You see, the people that have the clout, they get everything for free. And
this whole world is built
those
off of nepotism.
Too.
So
it's so crazy. So. And the reason I was asking you that question, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, was I have a strong belief, and I kind of get tired of seeing people, I would call them fake gurus, that try to sell the idea of this cookie cutter way of success or how you proceed to become successful. And
I really believe that's a finesse. It's a product. They know that they're spitting bullshit, but they know that people don't know anything. They're just trying to sell something.
Correct.
So.
And I think one of the reasons why I made this channel was to showcase these stories, to show the different ways that people, have moved about their creative way or their whatever business journey they're on or whatever, to kind of show the dynamicism between everything. Because I think everything is like, oh, we want to just you have to do this, this, and this to become successful. Like when we were growing up, you had to go to school, get good grades, get your degree, and then a company would pick you up. That was the path that our parents had heard was the meta at that time, right?
Right.
But now it's like, with the internet, like that doesn't even matter. Like you could learn anything you needed to learn online if you put in the time, or connect yourself with another person that may know more than you. But when you were saying that, how you were looking at the world was different, did that ever make you feel like, how did that make you feel like coming out of that? Did you have people trying to test you on like you should go into something with your field with your degree, or did people just kind of say, okay, you got the degree, but you're obviously super successful online? Like, did people still try to pull you into this other direction, or were they just kind of like, hey, man, you
no matter how much time goes by, how successful I get, my mom was always trying to get me to get a regular job. I don't understand that. I'm just like, does it look like I need one? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm like, all right, you go find me a job. Then I just say to get off my back. But like, once again, it's like how you said, the way our parents are conditioned, like they were conditioned that way for decades. So it's like, I'm starting now, my mom, she'd be doing TikTok. Like I have to still explain, I have to like unteach her so many things that she's been programmed to think about, of just like, it's like everyone's a slave, literally. It's like, it's all just like everyone's been made into a product. And I'm like, stop being the consumer and become the producer, like, so yeah, well, I mean, everybody, the whole world be doing that.
That's a heavy though. The consumption is at an all-time high. And at an all-time high. So like, all right, so you're Heavenly Controller. How did that name come about, by the way? Like, what was it like a gamer tag? Like, what was the inception of that name?
Yeah, so I started out as a gaming channel because I was gaming a lot. Like, because the YouTubers that I watched when I started, they were doing like funny commentary over their gameplay and just like reactions to the stuff that was happening in the game. So, and once again, I was just like, well, like even the tagline, it was Heavenly Controller, God amongst gamers, because like I was just I grew up watching Yu-Gi-Oh a lot too. So I was like, I'm the king of games. I'm just the best. I'm just better at every game.
So, I'm the best, homie.
Yeah. So I wanted to show people. I wanted to show them me just be the best at every game. So I would be doing like speed runs where I would just play through an entire game and not get hit once or something. And it's like, if I get hit, I start the whole game over. I just literally do this. But like, it was like a game I'd already played 40 times. So like, I wouldn't even get hit because I wouldn't even get in combat. Like I would play like Assassin's Creed, right? I would just sneak up on these niggas. Like, you know what I'm saying? I know all the points where, oh, he gonna walk over here, I'm gonna take him. So I like just showing flawless gameplay. That's what it was. It's like my gameplay is heavenly, like it's just like, it's graceful. Like it's not like I'm not running into walls. I'm not trying to look around and know where to go or whatever. Like it's like watching my gameplay is like watching a movie. You know what I mean? Like it has like grace to it. So that's why I call it the Heavenly Controller. And then even when I started doing other stuff, it was like, well, that's the name of the channel now. So I just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of, I think with Ismahawk as well, that was, I think Danny's, I think that was his gamer tag, and it kind of just stuck as the channel name, and then the production company grew from there, which is kind of interesting. So I always like seeing where the genesis of these names came from, because I think sometimes people think, oh yeah, of course that's the name, like, but they don't really, sometimes it's like the most basic concept of how the name came to be. It's like, oh, that's just all I figured out, and I just put something there, and
Yeah, I literally just made
now
some
it's
shit
a
up.
name.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be called by my name of my channel. Like, to me, it wasn't like a name. It was just the name of the channel. Like, even when I like,
Right.
so my real name is Anthony. I wouldn't call myself Heavenly. I would call myself Anthony. But then when I would be recognized all the time in person, everyone kept calling me Heavenly. So I was just like, you know
Right.
what? Like, it took too much effort to have to explain that every single time. So then I was just like, all right, we're just gonna stick with this. And now that feels more like my name than my original one. You know what I mean? So
How
yeah.
does that feel? Because I know for myself, when I see people at cons, or it happens less here in Australia because I moved here like 8 years ago, but in the States it happened often in LA, where people would see you at cons and recognize you. And how does it ever get normal to where you have this parasocial relationship with they feel they know you, but then you don't know them, and it almost, to me anyways, it feels like I feel bad at times because I don't know this person the way that they know me. How do you navigate that?
Well, I'm super used to it now. I feel like I'm completely detached from the whole thing. So like I just understand it. So like I'm not gonna feel bad or anything like that. Like I legitimately have like I'm kind of like media trained myself at this point to where I have had so many interactions to where I already can tell what kind of person I'm interacting with. I can tell if someone's nervous. I can tell if like a lot of times I ask them, do you want to take a picture? Because a lot of them do, but they don't want to feel like they're imposing on me, but I know that they want one.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then a lot of times too, even if they try to take a picture, because they're starstruck, they suddenly don't know how to use their phone. So I'm just like, all right, do you want me to take it? Like I'll just tell, I have a long arm, and that'll be my excuse. I can get more in the angle, whatever. So like, I just kind of
Right.
speed run the process. Like I already know all the questions, or I know all the conversation points. So I bring them up first to get it out of the way as quickly as possible, especially if there's like 4 or 5 people, I got to run through it all. So I'm just like,
Right.
oh, boom, 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 boom. So yeah, it's like, I have it down to a science at this point. So yeah, I'm pretty used to it now. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's been something that, you know, obviously you've had a massive run on YouTube and your streaming and stuff like that. So for myself, like, having that it's still strange. Like, it still hasn't settled for me. And I'm
Sure.
really good in terms of communicating with people, but it's more so of this person
It's a
sees
completely
me on a
different
daily
dynamic.
basis. Yeah,
Yeah.
they see me on a daily basis, and it really snapped to me. I used to work at Apple, and I went back to the States and visited the store that I used to work at. And one of my friends was like, "Yo, bro, I just saw you yesterday." And it was like, and in my head I was like, "Yo, that's such a like," but I know him though. So I think that's what cemented this idea of, I haven't seen this dude in like 3 years, and he saw me yesterday. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, we have a lot to catch up on. For him,
Sure.
he's like, I saw you yesterday. So I was
Right.
like, this is such a strange feeling. So yeah, it's always interesting to me to see how people maneuver through that, because I know it may feel different for certain people.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you this, man, because there's been a lot of craziness happening on YouTube of people's channels getting taken down, and
Yeah, mine too,
copyright
so.
and and you got hit with a crazy one. You got hit
Oh
with a
yeah.
crazy one. You gotta let us know what's going on. Like, what happened? Like, you just woke up one day and the shit was gone. Like, what happened?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. So what happened was I would always use copyright free music in my videos so that they could stay monetized, right? So I would a lot of times use anime music in my videos because anime music at the time, anime wasn't as mainstream as it was now. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of anime music that I was able to use. And as it became more mainstream and all these different licenses and stuff like that, like I was already getting, even before it got deleted, I was getting hit by all this shit like all at once. It was like all at once, all these things. Like what it was Disney bought a lot of licenses, like, and especially they bought the license to Bleach to bring the anime back, and I had Bleach music
Right.
in a lot of my videos. So they were just like, your whole channel's got to go, and they just took the whole thing down. So I couldn't even dispute it or anything. I didn't get an email or anything. So
That's crazy. The fact that it's almost like a retroactive situation is wild.
yeah, and my channel has been deleted like 5 times. So at this point, I'm like, that was just the final straw for me. I was just like, you know what? I'm over it at that point. Like, because YouTube had been dying for years already. So I was already kind of over it. So by the time that happened, that was just like, all right, that was just my excuse to be like, I'm just going to focus on my other platforms then.
So when you have a moment like that, right? Like you build something, it gets torn down, you build it again, it gets torn down. Like what's like the philosophy that helps you persevere? Like what's the thing that makes you say, you know what, I'm just gonna do it again, or I'm gonna, like, what inspires you to keep going?
I think that for me, I'm particularly fortunate in that like I've never gave a shit about how many followers I have or how many people are watching, because once again, for like the first 5 years of YouTube, nobody was leaving any comments, nobody was liking. So I was just refining my craft. To me, it's like I'm an artist, and you know, I don't need an audience to do my hobbies. Like I never did. Like I said, I've been by myself most of my life. I didn't want other people around. I don't like niggas. Like so to me, it was one of those things to where, I mean, at this point now I have a community, I have a lot of fans, and they're the ones who are more feeling some type of way about it. But I always tell them, well, if you really care about me, you know where to find me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm still alive. I still exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was like, I'll just make another channel. Like, cause even when it got taken down, I hadn't even uploaded in like months anyway. So, but a lot of people like to rewatch videos, but I'm like, well, it's time to move on. It's time to move the future, and nothing lasts forever. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it beautiful. So to me, I feel like it was a fun experience. You know what I'm saying? Made a lot of money. You know, the hoes love me now, so I'm chilling. Like I don't really need like nobody outside of my community even really knew that I had a YouTube channel or cared anyways. So it was really just a job for me at that point. Like, and so when the job stopped fulfilling me, I had already in my head, I had already detached from it. So, and also because it got deleted so many times before, like the first time it got deleted, like when I was still living at home, like I cried. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I was like I was even sending letters to the headquarters and shit, trying to get it back or whatever. And like, I remember just being depressed for like 2 weeks. And I was just like, actually, no, I remember, the second time it got deleted, I was like depressed for like 2 weeks, and I was just playing The Witcher. I was just streaming The Witcher like 24/7. Like I never went offline. Like even when I would go to sleep, I would just loop the footage, and then I would wake up and then just pop back in. And I was just streaming The Witcher because I'm like, I couldn't think about it. So I was just playing The Witcher for 2 weeks straight. And
Wow.
and then whenever my channel came back, it just randomly came back. I don't even sometimes even understood why. But yeah, so like yeah, so by after already got lost it so many times, and then also kind of like being over it. So when it got deleted, it was just like, all right, I just felt like I just graduated from a school at that point. You know, it's like on to the next thing, right? Because like a lot of times it was like even when I had like a job, whenever I got fired from a job, it wasn't like, to me, it wasn't like, oh no, I'm fired. It was like, oh, thank you, because I wouldn't have quit. So you firing me did me a favor, so now I can grow. So it's just another opportunity for growth, right? That's how I see it.
You know, it's so interesting you say that. When I had a cancer scare in 2017. I was at Apple still. I was here in Australia. I transferred to a store out here, and I was still doing YouTube part-time. I could have done YouTube full-time, but for whatever reason, some weird psychological thing was like, oh no, I still need Apple. I still need to do this. And I was working, helping this lady get a computer, and she looked at my finger, and she was like, have you gotten that looked at? And I was like, excuse me? And she was like, that line on your
You didn't even
nail.
notice someone else had a notice?
Bro, I was like, what do you mean? She was like, the line on your nail. I was like, yeah, what about it? She was like, have you had a doctor take a look at that? I was like, no. She was like, sometimes that's early signs of melanoma. You should get that looked at. And I was like,
I think you caught it early then.
I was like, what? So like my stomach fell up my ass. Like that was like immediate, doom. Like what's going on? I don't I've never had a drug. I've never had alcohol. I'm like, what are we on right now? Like, this can't be happening type of thing. So I immediately go talk to the leader at the store. I was like, hey, I need to leave right now. And like, what's going on? I told him I found a cancer clinic directly around the corner from my store. I walked in like a walk-in. And thank God that I live in Australia, because healthcare here is
free.
So so I end up walking in, and they say, hey, we're going to need to do a biopsy. So a week later, so the scheduled a week after that. So I go in, they do a biopsy. I have to wait a week for results. The results come back inconclusive. They say, look, bro, so the week goes by. They're like, hey, the results came back inconclusive. What we're going to do is just cut the rest of your nail matrix out in that area, to then just hopefully that section's gone and we don't have to worry about it. So they do that. Their tests come back solid. So as soon as it came back good, I put in my resignation. It was like a moment of like, you need to just go.
You need to live your life.
Go. Like, you need to just do it. And it was one of those moments, man, where, and then once that was gone, Facebook hit me up for Facebook gaming contract and all these other things started popping off. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? And sometimes, like you were saying, like, you need to let some shit go for other things to really to start to open up. And sometimes you just don't know that it's been your time. Like, it's been your time to step away from the shit, and you just are just in this habit loop.
There's like a saying, that when, like, if you don't move, like, if your life starts to fall apart, it's really like God's way of giving you something better. Like, if you are willing to play along that script, you know, it's like, it's really an opportunity. It's like, because a lot of times we're in a place in our life where we don't want to be, but we feel trapped there because of all these obligations. So then the universe just strips them away from us so that we can see clearly. And so, like, even for me, I'm like, when my channel got deleted, I was like, I'm about to get something better then, because like, that's so random. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, I transmute the energy, you know? So yeah. So that just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, bro. It was definitely an awakening, but again, I look back at it now, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that moment happened. It's so weird how weird moments like that, like bad moments, have this weird paradox of being good moments. Like good things come out of bad situations. It's a weird paradox that life kind of gives us. But yeah. So now what's on the trajectory for you, bro? Like, you know, obviously YouTube, you're kind of like, cool. Like, obviously you have another channel, but it's not like your main focus. What is on the horizon for you, bro? Like, what are you looking at?
Well, at this point now, I feel like because of all my experiences, I would like, it's kind of ironic because I went to college to be a teacher, and I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I'm just doing my own thing. And now I kind of feel like I've taken upon that role. I think that's kind of the natural progression with anything. Like, if you're a musician, then you eventually become a producer, get your own record label, and put on other artists. So I feel like for me now, I just want to share my experiences, my knowledge with people, because I've just, you know, I've lived a full life already at such an early age. So I have a lot of experiences to share, a lot of wisdom and knowledge. So, so now, yeah, I just talk to my community, and just, you know, a lot of people, since they've been watching me for so long, they like, a lot of people are like, oh, you were my childhood. So like a lot of people, they just look to me for guidance. And I know that especially in this day and age, it's hard for a lot of people. So I just try to be just a beacon of light for people, to just be like, keep moving forward. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, now I just try to inspire people and just help out other people, because it's just like, well, I got plenty of time on my hands, so I might as well share it, you know? So.
Yeah. And I think to your point, cause here's the thing, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit. I think a lot of people now are trying to aspire to be creators, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, right? Because that's what they're seeing. That's what it seems more tangible for them to do that than become an actor, a musician, whatever. Because it's something you can just do at home. Like, you don't need to really acquire a ton of equipment anymore. When you hear that from people, and because for me, it's like any job kind of thing. Like, sometimes you're built for it, sometimes you're not. what do you kind of give people when they're saying like, I want to be a YouTuber? I want to be like, what's the perspective that you tried to help people maybe grasp in that endeavor? Because I think people just see the glitz of things, or they look at the 1%er YouTuber like Mr. Beast, where it's like, he's the anomaly. Like he's not the normal YouTuber. Even yourself, you're an anomaly. You know what I'm saying? There was like the skill, there was the timing, there was the little bit of luck. It was like these things that kind of like perfect stormed you to be at the right place at the right time. Obviously, with also your ability to do the shit. So how do you help somebody understand when they say, I want to be a YouTuber?
Well, what I always tell people is that they should do it not because they want, like, to me, the way that I look at success is that it's a personal thing. So they have to do it for themselves and not for other people, if that's why they want to do it. Because a lot of people, they don't want to be a YouTuber. They just want validation from the world. That's what they want. They want attention and they want money. But the thing is that if you're not passionate about it, it's going to feel like a job and it's going to burn you out. And so what I always tell people is that, like, first of all, anybody can be a YouTuber. It's actually, honestly, I don't even think it's that hard. I just think that it just has to be something that comes naturally to you. Like, you have to be willing to do it for 30 years without anybody caring. Like, if you can be a YouTuber for 30 years and get no views, then be a YouTuber. But if that sounds like too unrealistic or too long of a timeline, then you're not built for it. Because you have someone like Morgan Freeman, who, he was even saying this on a podcast I listened to, how he acted for his entire life. And it wasn't until he was old that he started to pop up.
He was like 40 something.
So, yeah. So, and for some people, it's like that. Like, there are some big YouTubers now and they're a lot older. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for those younger people, it's like, yeah, they're some type of anomaly or what's the other word? Industry plant. You know what I'm saying? So, so like, I feel like for anybody, they should pursue their passions. And if YouTube is a part of that journey, then they should take it. I do think that anybody could be a YouTuber, because you could be a YouTuber of any type. For a lot of people, they want to be a version of something that they've already seen. But what I always tell people is, like, you need to create your own lane. You need to be your own niche. You can pull from other things to be a base inspiration. Like, all of my ideas, all of like my concepts, they originated from me just copying somebody else, but I built and innovated it. You know what I'm saying? Same like how we were saying with the anime these days. It's like, okay, well, they were inspired by those creators and then they made something better. They made something different. So that's what I tell people is that, like, I mean, this is why I tell people with everything. It's like, do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. And when you feel successful, you are. It doesn't matter how the rest of the world thinks, because they're not even going to recognize it at that point. Like, by the time I'm ever celebrated for doing something, it doesn't even feel like anything, because I already achieved that state in my head a long time ago. It's just them just now starting to notice.
That was a bar. That's a bar, son. Like, the idea, I tell people this all the time. Like, sometimes, bro, like, you're just waiting for everybody else to catch up. Like, pretty much. Like, I've been
everyone
here.
else is.
I'm just waiting for you to catch up.
A decade behind me, honestly. Like, they're gonna be like, "Yo, that's so cool!" Like, it's so funny because people are literally stuck in timelines. Because, like, I'll have a video go viral on TikTok, and people will be having a conversation about something that happened 3 years ago, and then to me, I'm just like, we've been past that. Like, we on completely other shit now. Like, and even to this day, people are always like, "You should make a video on this. You should make a video on that." I'm like, bro, that was like a long time. I'm a different person now, you know. But so yeah, and then the other line that I wanted to say was, like, they say everybody sees the shine and they don't see the grind. Like, we make it look easy, but they don't see the hours, weeks, months, maybe even years of grueling work with no accolade, no congratulation, no tangible result. Us just keeping our head down, doing shit, and sometimes even being convinced that nobody ever will care. And some people that discourages them, and for some people like me, it just makes me stop giving a shit, you know. So then when people do care, it's just like, back when I wanted y'all to care, you didn't. So now that you do, I don't care that you care, you know. So
that's actually a powerful philosophy, man. Because, like, I think sometimes I know when people tell me about, like, oh, I want to do this, and I start asking them questions more so around the lines of, how do you feel about people judging you that don't know who you are?
I mean, they don't know who I am. Like, so that answer, that the question answers itself, you know.
Right.
It's like,
I think a lot of people though they can't grasp that. They're like, oh, well, if I put something out there and I start getting hate on it, right? Well, it's like, can you handle that? Because I think
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
they just see the fandom side of it, but it's
Oh
like
yeah. That
there's
honestly,
a
that's
massive side
that's the
of
bigger
people
obstacle.
that
Like
just yeah,
for a lot of people, I'm like, it doesn't even matter how talented you are. If you can't handle public scrutiny, that's gonna shut you down. That's gonna kick you out of the game. And that's why I don't even feel like I really have competition, just because I've like adjusted to it gradually as it became a thing. But now it's such a big thing. Like now people are scared to even talk on the internet because they're afraid about their digital footprint. But like back
yeah,
in the day, we were saying all types of crazy shit. Like people always want to bring up one of my old
right,
tweets to cancel me, and it's just like, well, that was back when
right,
nobody gave a shit. You know, it was a different time.
right,
Like, you know, you see a
right,
lot of comedians, they made jokes that were like not as edgy as they like now as they were before. You know, like
right,
people could get away with all types of different things because the internet didn't integrate everybody's cultures and create this political correctness. But
right,
now in the world that we're in now, most people, they like, and as you say, like the consuming is at all-time high. So people are so heavily programmed by external validation now that it suffocates them. And you would have to conquer that before anything. And most creators that I know haven't even conquered that. Like a lot of creators, they can't even get over that, and it actually stops them from creating. But it's just like, bro, who gives a fuck? They don't know you. I like to use the comparison of like, if someone is like, oh, I don't like, if Robert Downey Jr. acts in Iron Man, oh, I don't like Tony Stark. Well, it's like, okay, well, that's the character that he's playing. But the
right,
person is a completely different individual. So it's
completely.
just performing that cognitive dissonance, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge that I think some, when they get into the space, that they have the hardest time dealing with is the public scrutiny and understanding like you're not going to please everyone. That is an impossible task. You think,
And then if you try to please the people that, if you try to please those people, then there's going to be another group of people who now like it's like when you try to please one group, you're going to displease the other group. So you might as well just do what the fuck you want, because no matter what, you're going to have haters. So
and I think that's something that is hard to deal with. And I do want to, before we go, there's something that I feel is close to you. It's close to me. And I think, you know, being creators, almost by default, you're by yourself, right? Rarely, I think now more so it's become more of a thing of having like group channels and people having like group reactions with people and friends that they do content with. But a lot of times people are starting out by themselves. They're kind of introverted extroverts, or they're just introverted full stop. Because I've met a lot of content creators where on camera, they're this bubbly personality out there, but in person, they're very introverted.
oh yeah.
So, and the reason I'm bringing this up is a couple years back, or a year back now, a little over a year, the dancer world, we lost Twitch. And that was a big, what the hell? My best friend, his name's Toshi, he, everybody would always compare him and Twitch because they're such a similar type of dancer, similar personality or whatever. And Twitch is always this smiley guy, blah, blah. And Toshi was the same. And when this happened, and all of us, I wasn't like friends with Twitch. Like we've crossed each other's paths and stuff like that. But my biggest thing was Toshi and Twitch are like the same type of person. So when this happened, I'm like, first thing popped in my head is like, yo, I need to check on my best friend immediately. Like I talk to him all the time. We do content and shit, but if nobody saw this happening with Twitch, this could also be happening with my mans. Like this is my guy. Obviously, the content creator world, we've lost a ton of people to suicide. A ton of people. Obviously, Etika being one of those as well that you've known as well. So, like, in that event, like, do you feel a lot of what we just talked about is tied to that, or do you think it's more so along the lines of like just feeling like they are too alone, like they're too isolated? Like what? Like,
no, I think that it's not the isolation. It's that like I feel like we want to be isolated for the most part, but we can't. Like once you blow up, you can now never escape. It's like now it's like no matter what I do like see a lot of people, they'd be saying, oh, like, you know, all these oh, you fell off comments. It's like, no, I'm hiding from you. I ran away because I don't like you, like, you know. And yeah, and like
Yo.
when I see that happen, like when I see my friends get lost to that, that makes me more militant too. It's where it's just like I need to, like, because like there are times where it's like I need to keep going just for them, just because I don't like. And what's so crazy is that when that stuff happens, everyone feels sad about it, but then they go back to doing the same shit that caused it in the first place. And then I sound like the crazy one, be like, yo, do you guys not see the hypocrisy here? You know?
Right.
And yeah, and that's also why I try to like be an advocate for mental health for people, because yeah, like this is the same way like with Hollywood and stuff like that. People are like, oh, how could these people ever be depressed? Like, oh, they have money, they have attention, and blah blah, all this stuff. But now, like, the most successful people are the most depressed. So, and people don't empathize with them because of their success, and and yeah, and then that creates a different type of isolation in the sense that they don't see us as humans anymore. You know, they no longer empathize with us, and they think that our experiences invalidate who we are. And so, yeah, I try to spread awareness of things like that. But like, I also don't necessarily even blame any specific group of people for that. It's just a construct that society has created. So yeah, so I actively try to deconstruct that. Like with my content, even though I have my personality, I will break character to put niggas in their place, just to set an example, you know, because it's serious. It's, you know, it's a real thing. Like even like, for example, like on my Instagram, people are like, oh, why is he posting these videos? It doesn't make any sense. But it's just like, I'll post the memes for the engagement, but then I'll also post videos of just like I posted this one video and it was from Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and Chloe was saying like, you know, because like Kim, she's all about the clout and the money and stuff, and Kim, and Chloe is like, I just want to make memories with my sisters. Like all this stuff, if this stuff all goes away, and like I can always see, that's the thing too. I now have an eye for it. I can always see who the person is in a group of people or in a who's struggling. Like you can see like how, like it's almost like the people who online who are being the most quote unquote fake are the ones who are hiding the most, because they can't handle that.
That's so real.
There's a name for this. I literally just read it in a book today, actually. Hold on. I think it was called oh, here we go. Here's what it is. Agoraphobia, an extreme irrational fear of entering open or crowded spaces or leaving one's home or being in places from which escape is difficult. So yeah, so it's kind of like it's created this phobia of people where they're like they have this fear of being perceived, because they're being perceived, like you said, by all these parasocial connections. And even if you know they're not true, our subconscious hears these things, so it records them. So then it's like it starts to influence you, and like, no matter how strong of a person you are, like I even remember before I was a YouTuber, I would watch these YouTubers with millions of subscribers, and they would still be like getting stressed out about hate comments. I'm like, why would you care? Like, don't you get these all the time? But it's just like, no matter how successful you are or how often it happens, you're still a human. It still affects your mental health. And and yeah, like that's something that, like, even for me, I've had to tell myself as well, because like I like to be like, oh, nothing doesn't faze me, but things do faze me, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so once again, it's like I said, I'd rather assign my ego to being self-aware, and instead of just like trying to preserve this false reality to protect myself. If I know that, oh, okay, this video is going to have a lot of negative comments, I'm not going to read them. I'm not going to put myself in that situation, you know? So yeah, you kind of have to just, like, through your experience, if someone else doesn't teach you, just learn how to navigate that, because yeah, it can be dangerous. It can literally kill you. So
yeah, that's the biggest thing that I think for me is when people, like you said before, it's definitely a social construct in terms of how they perceive someone that has a platform or has an audience as, oh, well, it's almost like they don't connect with you anymore. It's like, oh, you're a different type of person. There's no way that you could be upset because you have money. They're looking at things and qualities that they don't have themselves. So it's almost like they don't relate to you anymore. So like, oh, there's no way that you could be upset, you could be frustrated, you could be sad. And you had brought up the point also of like the celebrity side of things. And again, I was in the music industry for a little bit. So, and in just entertainment, full stop. So you see actors or people reading comments about them. It's like these people don't know you at all. They just like your music, or they like the movie you've been in, or hey, they love the content you create. But that's a part of who you are as a being. So, you know, for them, hearing these things over and over, and you said it extremely well, but it's like you start hearing stuff over and over, you start to tend to believe things that you hear about yourself. And
That's
it's
how that works.
like it's a super subconscious thing. And it's one of the things you talked about earlier. And I tell people this all the time. If you do not program your mind, you will be programmed, period.
Facts.
What do you put in your
all
head?
The time. Yes. Like people don't think, and then they wonder, they don't realize that when you're not thinking, someone's thinking for you. Like,
yeah. So if you're hearing, hey, you're a trash person, you're terrible. If you start hearing that shit all the time,
you're hearing that more than your own thoughts.
Bro, you're like, hold on, like, man, like, you start to believe, like, am I really a terrible person? Like, I just like the show. Like, I didn't like this character. What are we talking? What? I didn't know that.
That's what I'm saying. Damn, because I don't like your show. I'm just the worst person in the world. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. Like, damn,
you don't understand the complexities of this character. No, I just don't like the character. I get what he's going through. I just don't
resonate with that. Yeah. This is not for me. Not everything is for everyone. Like,
correct. And so it's just so interesting hearing those things. So I gotta ask, because I'm gonna be asking everybody this, and everybody's gonna want to know. But because I know you kind of talked about it, but I'm not sure if this is now. What anime do you feel you resonate with the most in terms of like your life experience, maybe things you've drawn from? Like, what do you feel is that particular anime that you're like, yo, like this probably describes me the most, or something you've pulled from the most on your
Can I cheat
journey?
And say two? Because there's like, it's kind of a tie. So it's a tie between Vinland Saga and Attack on Titan. Because now as an adult, both of those shows just explore the complexity of society and you know, contrasting opinions and what to do about that. Like, should we just turn the other it's kind of like they both kind of are just like that Malcolm X Martin Luther King dynamic. Like, should we fight back, or should we turn the other cheek? Or like, you know, how do we find that balance, you know? Because there's always going to be a war to fight, but we don't want to fight. So so like I kind of like that's why I tell people to just like they need to just rumble, but like not like Aaron rumbling, but just like figure out like pick a choice, like figure out who you are, like what you're going to do, and then commit to it, because there is no perfect answer. No matter how you choose to lose, it's like how we were saying, like you're always going to have someone disagree with you. Like, figure out what do you want. Or I posted this on my Instagram of Uncle Iroh talking to Zuko, right? He's like, oh, I need to do this because my father. He's like, what do you want? Like, all these other people, like your parents, girlfriend, government, siblings, friends, all telling you all these other things. Who are you? What do you want? And figuring out who that person is, like, and like, what I like about, and especially what I resonate with Attack on Titan is that kind of makes you like, the world starts to see you as a terrorist in some respects, because you're just not playing along anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're like, I'm not going to mess with anybody else's shit, but I'm not about to let anyone else mess with my shit either. And I'll fight to defend that. You know, I'll like fight to live, then live on my knees in chains. You know what I mean? So
right.
So yeah. So that's what I resonate with the most.
Man, that's fire, sure, bro. Anthony, I appreciate you, bro, like for being here. The first guest, because I met you, I think, is either at Anime Expo or E3. It was one of the two. I met you like,
I just remember meeting you through Emily.
2017. Yeah,
I just remember meeting you through Emily because we were both doing videos off of her. So
yeah, and I was like, yo, that's kind of wild. So like, it's so dope, man, seeing what you've been able to do since then and continue to grow and innovate. Yeah, man, I appreciate you being here, and hopefully we can do this again.
Thanks for having me.